Okay, we're live. Hello and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Ringer Plus Show, live. Ask the expert anything. I'm sorry, I'm not really. We still haven't figured out what we're going to go with the name. Anyway, my name is Pang, and as you can see, we have Roshan, back by popular demand, for this
Sure.
episode. Um, how are you doing, Roshan?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I'm glad to see that we're doing it in the daytime. I can see the sunlight,
Yeah,
keeping people company while they're having their lunch.
Yeah, so this was actually one of the feedback that we had when we were doing our shows in the past few weeks, and we thought making the change to an afternoon lunchtime slot could be an interesting time where more of you guys will be able to kind of tune in and join us with this discussion. So this week, for this week, Roshan, we're going to be talking about something that's pretty close to both of our hearts. I know that you're also a
Yeah.
tech geek, and that is, of course, when it comes to buying a new smartphone. How can you afford to purchase one? How do you know, we're going to talk about a few things, right? How do you know whether you can afford a device? Number one. Number two, if you're planning to purchase a device, like what are the strategies that that you can do to maximize your savings, right? Which is definitely, I'm sure a lot of you would be interested
Yeah.
to hear. And of course, from the last point of view, there's some stuff from Roshan that I know you want to share as well in terms of like identifying some ways on strategizing and really like understanding how much can you truly afford when it comes to purchasing a device, right?
Yeah, Pang, at the end of the day, I think, I hope, we're not trying to come from at least I'm not trying to come from a preachy angle, right? Because I love my devices, but it's about, I guess, spending wisely or at least being conscious about that expenditure, right? And being
Yeah,
responsible because you don't want to sacrifice your future as well. So hopefully we go through maybe setting some context over how to think about affordability and as well as
correct.
the best ways to maximize the deals out there as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, first things first, like, let's get something out of the way, right? Where smartphones or technology, gadgets are very much an emotional kind of purchase, so to
Yes.
say. I know, Roshan, you like to compare like a smartphone to a car, right? Where
Yeah.
sometimes some people want the latest and the greatest, some people want best value for money, and there's never a truly correct answer, so to say, when it comes to like what's the best device. There's always the best device for you. So for all the viewers out there, I want to start this off with a poll, right? How much do you think is too much when it comes to a smartphone's price? We talk about the new iPhone, right? Which can go all the way up to 7,500 ringgit. Samsung's foldable phones are already in that 7,000 ringgit range. And of course, you have your flagship devices that have slowly been creeping up in price from the Chinese players, that have been from the low 1,000s to the 2,000s, and now it's kind of creeping up into the Samsung and Apple price range. It's
Yeah. Are
it's
you
a
talking about
lot of price.
OnePlus there,
Uh,
Pang?
Hey, when we look at Xiaomi as well, they're doing some
Yeah,
pretty
that's
interesting
true.
stuff, and it's in that premium price points, right? And I know, Roshan, you also have done this on your Twitter poll. I saw that
Yeah.
you had and the responses are actually quite interesting, right? There's no kind of definitive price point where someone says it's too much.
Yeah, so if it's actually quite interesting, right? Because so the poll results, I gave you four options: above 1,000, above 2,000, above 3,000, above 4,000 ringgit.
Yeah,
14% said it's too much above 1,000 ringgit, right? So that's the minority here. 26% said it's too much if it's above 2,000. 31% said above 3,000, and this is the majority of the poll. And 29% said above 4,000 ringgit. So excuse me, a wide variety here and quite evenly distributed. But a lot of people don't think that above 1,000 ringgit is that kind of benchmark at the very least.
right. So I make for all those who are viewing, I know I've seen some comments here already. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. Keep
Wow.
sharing in your comments in the comment section. But um, one way that I know, Roshan, you've also been mentioning this before, is that when we look at the price point of a device, we also kind of look at a few factors, right, to kind of
Mhm.
determine the effective cost of the phone over time, right? So one of the ways that you mentioned here in this chart, I'll let you continue, but like the kind of thing that we're looking at is the lifespan of the device. right?
Yeah.
Roshan, you want to
So
share a bit more?
yeah, sure. So here I just want to mention that I'm also assuming a monthly income of 4,000 ringgit, which is above the average if you take a look at aggregate incomes in Malaysia, but it's maybe a fair representative of people who are looking to buy these kind of devices. If we take a look at the chart here, I've used a 3-year lifespan because that seems to be the average before someone moves their device and that sort of thing. Some people use up to 7 years. I've seen responses how people use 5 to 7 years, but they spend maybe 5 to 6,000 at the start, and then they basically amortize it, depreciate it over time, and then and this also doesn't take into account the trade-in value at the end, right? But you can use that to kind of offset the price of your next device, just for context. So I think the purpose of this chart here is just to show that I think ideal. I think it gave me a lot of context when I first started looking at this was how much of your income on a monthly basis should go to a device, or would you be comfortable going to a device? If it's 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, this kind of gives you that benchmark, that gauge here, right? And we can talk about like the OnePlus Nord CE 5G, right, which is 1,400 ringgit. It's a really cheap phone. So. Right, the cursor I can show. Right, it's a really cheap phone, and if you maybe it lasts 3 years, it costs you 40 ringgit a month. What is the comparative price of 40 ringgit a month? That's a Netflix subscription, maybe, and it goes higher and higher, right? So if you're looking at and the benchmark we're using here is the iPhone 13, 3,899 ringgit for 128 gigabyte phone. It should at least for last you 3 years, right? Because I have an iPhone 10R, it's 3 years old, still works great. So you have at least got that benchmark there, probably worth something at the end. That's going to cost you about 108 ringgit a month. This doesn't take into account the upfront cash outflow, right? That is a separate issue. Maybe you use your 24-month plan or something like that. But this is how much the device is costing you a month. And if you're earning 4,000 ringgit, that's 2.7% of your income. This is very relative. 2.7% of your income could sound a lot to you, or it could sound little, right? Depending on the kind of other priorities you have in your life, right?
Correct.
In terms of bills, and maybe you've got a house loan which takes up 30% of your income. So it's all about context, right, and relativity.
Yeah. So I think one of the interesting points here is like when I first saw this table, it's just like, yeah, okay. Bad thing. The first thing that I saw was that 2% only. What? It's actually not a lot. Which is like 100 ringgit a month, right? Like which is kind of similar to what you would normally pay for your bills and your other commitments, right? So like you said, it's very relative in the sense that
it's the value, right, that you ascertain towards the device.
Correct. With most of us having bills to pay for and all these things, this is one of those other things that takes up a percentage of your income.
Yeah.
So whether that can fit into your income alongside the other commitments without actually affecting any of them, then you can say that you can comfortably afford this phone,
also,
right?
And another point to add there, Pong, is not to be limited by your expenses, right? Because we have to think about the future as well. We have to invest, and this is coming from a financial planning perspective. And I think a good way to kind of gauge this, because we mentioned earlier that I think of phones like cars, right? That's because I think of phones as a depreciating asset. Some people may disagree with me and think of it as an expense, but I use my phone for work, I use it for calls, I use it for all sorts of things that add economic value to my life, similar to a car. But it's a depreciating asset, right? Not like a house or anything else that kind of rises with time. So you've got to be conscious of that. And like a car, you're going to have to, like every 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you're going to have to buy a new one. So this percentage of your income is in perpetuity. It's going to keep being there, right? So you got to think of it that way. So the key here is to spend responsibly, spend consciously, right? Be aware of how much you're spending.
Conscious spending, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a term that author Ramit Sethi uses a lot. But essentially, I think a good way to go about it, guilt-free spending, is essentially you take your income, your take-home income, and you minus your savings and your investing. That can equal your expenses, right? So you're already guilt-free. You're telling yourself, hey, I'm saving for the future already. I'm putting this money aside, 100 ringgit, 200 ringgit, 300 ringgit a month on my regular savings plan towards regular saving plan towards maybe a 100% equity portfolio. Like you're investing for your retirement fund already. Then the remainder you split between your expenses, right? Your commitments that you already have. So you're not sacrificing your future for today. And obviously a big part also is to watch out for credit card, consumer debt, right? When you take all these kind of things. These are just a few notes to take note of, because you can use your 24-month plan or use your entire credit limit, but you don't want to carry a balance on the credit card because you're paying effectively, I think, between 15 and 18% per annum on that kind of balance you're carrying, which is a lot of money
It's a lot.
to be
It's a
spending.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about it. Like, we think of an 8% per annum on an investment as a great thing. You're throwing money away if you're paying that kind of cost on your debt that you're carrying. Also, other things to kind of pay attention to include hidden costs like your screen protector, cases, other accessories, and also the cost to
That's
replace.
actually
Right?
true.
Yeah, it's a great point. And also cost to replace, because if your phone is so important, if you're not going to buy insurance, you have to be, I guess, accepting the fact that if it's not very repairable, you're going to have to spend some money to replace it if anything happens, right? So just some things to keep in mind of.
Right. Okay, cool. We're going to talk about how, a lot of times many people won't take all these into consideration and they're going to purchase them anyway. So for this group of people, we will be talking about some ideas and some strategies on how to kind of, you're going to be spending a lot of money on this. Here are some ways that you can, maximize your savings on it. But before that, we are giving away some Rigor Plus Academy workshop seats as the previous episode. I think moving forward, if our producers are feeling very generous, they're going to continue doing this. We're going to give away 3 seats for this round. And we're just going to ask a simple question, and the first 3 correct answers will receive a free Ringgit Plus Academy workshop that is worth 700 ringgit per person, right?
And you've got 15 seconds to answer, right, Pang? Is that right?
Yes, there's only 15 seconds to answer. Previous ones, I think we gave like 30 seconds. So don't worry, the question's actually really simple. We'll show the question now. Yeah, okay. So the question: last year's special tax relief for certain electronic devices is also applicable this year. A, true, or B, false? Leave the your answer in the comment section. 15 seconds, and we'll give you some 15 seconds now.
TikTok. Yeah. I am also looking at some of the comments, Fang, and I think I see one from Bradley who's commenting over on YouTube. Only one Samsung. I'm pretty sure I put a few others in the comparison sheet
one
there.
Galaxy 21.
Oh man! Oh, I put a lot of OnePluses. That's what I did.
Yeah, you put a lot of iPhones. I can see where
okay, to be fair, I was using the iPhone as the benchmark, and then I put it. I interspersed it there, right? Also, it was just I was on one website. It was easy to just collate.
Okay.
All right,
no problem. Okay, time's up.
Yeah, time's up, and we've
got some answers. We've got answers ready. Okay, so we'll let our producers figure that out. Who's won that? They will be in touch with you through DM, I'm assuming. But they will be in touch with you and they will get you signed up for the Ringgit Plus Academy workshop. So we'll carry on. This is the part I think a lot of people will be interested to know. How do you maximize your savings, right? Put it into context. Let's say, the people who are saying here, a lot of people are saying, devices cost more than 3,000 ringgit. Any kind of savings will make a pretty big difference when it comes to these kind of purchases. Yeah. So we've lined out 5 ways. Roshan, you want to take us through them?
Sure. I also do want to remind everyone that there are another 2 seats to be given out, so be sure to stay tuned. There's another quiz coming up.
I thought that was a surprise, but okay. Let's carry on.
Oh, sorry, surprise. In any case, so let's talk about how to maximize some savings here, right? So you want to get the device. You want to, for example, like myself, right? I've come to that 3-year mark, and I'm thinking, you know what? I want to buy a new phone. Maybe I want to buy the iPhone 13. Maybe I don't. Maybe I want to buy the S21. Who knows, right? But there are a few ways to go about it. And these are the 5 top tips here, right? Or the 5 key typical ways that people look at. One is looking at the telco plans. Now, there are 2 ways of that, right? There's the zero upfront plans, which basically charge you a piece of the phone over time alongside your bill, right? That's a monthly payment. Then you've also got the normal contracts where they give you a subsidy, a pure play subsidy on the phone price, but you pay for a certain upfront fee for that. Then, of course, you got the trade in and trade up. And some of this can be done part and parcel of each other, right? They're not, there's a bit of modular in nature if you really think about it. So if you do a trade in, trade up, you can get, and I only know this because I have an iPhone XR. I know the trade in, trade up price at certain outlets for iPhone XR 128 gigabytes is 980 ringgit right now. So I know that. So whatever device I'm going to get, I know that offsets the device price by 1,000 ringgit on my side, right? So let's go through some of the numbers I've put together here. I'm using the iPhone 12 as a benchmark here because a lot of the telcos don't have the iPhone 13 in stock yet, and they haven't updated their plans just yet.
Yeah, it's only
And
available next month, in a few
yeah,
weeks. So the prices usually come up around that time.
yeah, and the iPhone 13 pricing is already out, but I think they haven't just updated
For the
their
telcos.
pricing strategy, right? So we're going to use the iPhone 12, 128 gigabyte as of yesterday. I just updated the numbers yesterday. So when you take a look at this, so you've got zero upfront plans for 36 months, 24 months, and different pricing tiers, right? So essentially, the telcos, what they want to do is they want to keep you. They want to keep you on the plans, right? They want to keep you tied to them for a certain amount of period, a certain amount of time. And what they want to do, what they do in return is they essentially give you a subsidy on the phone, a discount, basically, right? So if you're going for maybe the one telco has a 60 gigabyte plan for 36 months, the monthly payment for the zero upfront plan is 207 ringgit a month. Of that 207 ringgit, you're paying 79 a month for the zero plan itself. So think of it as that 79 is going towards the phone payment. The telco plan in perspective here is 128 ringgit a month. That is for 60 gigs and unlimited calls and all that sort of thing. So effectively, you're paying over the 36 months, you're paying 2,844 ringgit for the phone, right? Considering that the price of the phone is 3,599, you're getting an effective subsidy here of 955 ringgit, which is significant, right? It's almost 1/3 off. And if you're someone who has stuck with the same telco for the last 20 years, 10 years, or even 5 years, and you kind of know that you're not going to switch out, and you already have 128 you're already using the 60 gigabytes or 128 ringgit a month and you've never changed or you don't want to downgrade, this could be a good way to go about it, right? And as you can see from the numbers here, there are various ways to go about it. Now, a few things to watch out for like things like the 24-month lower tiered plans, like they give you 30 gigabytes or less. The phone subsidy becomes very minimal, right? Suddenly you got like 130 ringgit a month.
Yeah.
So you want to kind of do that math as well to kind of pay attention to whether you're actually saving money or just getting yourself tied to for no reason. And then you've got the bottom here is essentially if you don't take a zero rated plan. So if you just pay 40 ringgit a month, there's a postpaid plan for this amount that gives you 8 gigs of data, and you pay for the phone upfront, right? You don't get a phone subsidy, but effectively over 36 months, you're paying 5,239 ringgit, and that is less than all the other plans if you see up there. So again, it really is about how much, what is your base use for your data, your telco, that sort of thing. Only then will you understand what your needs are, right? Because sometimes you feel like you need 60 gigabytes, but you don't actually need. So I give you a bit of context. For myself personally, I pay 53 ringgit a month, including taxes, for my phone bill, and that comes with like it's unlimited calls, unlimited text, but also it comes with 8 gigabytes of free to use data, unlimited WhatsApp. I've added on a few things there, so I'm paying effectively 53 ringgit a month, and over a 24-month period, that's what 1,200 ringgit I'm paying for the phone bill. And if I buy the device upfront for maybe 3,800, that takes it up to 5,000 ringgit. So I would be spending more money if I went for a telco. So that's something to keep in mind for some people out there, right? So just keep an eye on that. Let me just double check my math here. It is correct. My math is. I've lost the spreadsheet a little bit, but never mind. But essentially, you get the point, right?
Correct. Yeah. Which is just don't be tied to a contract that you may not be fully utilizing, and the savings that you get upfront, you end up paying over time from your contract monthly commitments. So
the subsidy, the subsidy may not be worth it. The discount may not be worth it if you don't already utilize the kind of data and you don't utilize that plan, right? Now, this one is normal contract, right? So you pay upfront. So, for example, for let's see, the 128 ringgit plan, the 60 gigabyte plan that we referenced earlier, you get a phone subsidy upfront of 1,400 ringgit because you're paying only 2,400 ringgit for the phone, right? Total paid over the 24-month period is 5,500. So this, if upfront, you're getting, again, about a third off the device price, which is quite significant.
This is more than the previous one, about 200 ringgit more, 1,171, right?
Yeah, because I think it's
it's 955.
Where am I?
Yes.
But this is for 36 months, right? So we want to look at this one right here. So this is the comparable one. So at 128, the phone cost is 3,000. The phone subsidy is 799, effectively over a 2-year period. Over here, the phone subsidy is an upfront 1,400 ringgit. So again, so it's pretty good, especially if you know that you want the phone, and you can use other methods to pay for the upfront, where maybe do it over 24 months period over your credit card, make sure you pay your credit card balance in full every month, that sort of thing.
Which we'll share in the next part anyway, right?
Correct. We're going to share more of that, because end of the day, when you take a look at the previous plan from a financial perspective, they're essentially charging you for the cost of the credit, essentially, right? Because you're paying over time as opposed to paying that upfront money, because money is always better now than it is later. All right, I think I've pretty much given the context here. So let's just jump over to the next slide. And the next thing is the tax reliefs, right? This is a big thing, because both last year and did we already answer that quiz? Has that already been asked? Yes, it was asked already. I can spoil the answer. So I think from the comments I saw, everyone said it was true, which is, yes, it's correct. It's true. They extended it, the special 2,500 ringgit for devices this year. They had it last year as well. Effectively, this means you've got total of 5,000 ringgit in tax reliefs that you can use for certain devices. So for example, laptop or phone. Should you use the entire 5,000 ringgit for that? That really depends on you, right? If you don't have any gym memberships, you don't have any subscriptions, you haven't bought any books, then maybe you want to do that. But remember that you can use the lifestyle relief. Yeah, Pang, sorry.
No, I was just trying to point out that a lot of times the 2,500 ringgit lifestyle tax relief, most of the time is easily maxed out from your mobile internet bills, like you said, subscriptions to your gym, even I think magazine subscriptions as well. So there are many avenues that you can use, but because there's an extra 2,500 this year, you have the opportunity to actually get extra savings through tax relief.
Yeah. So what I've given here is just a bit of context, right? Say you buy the iPhone 13, 128 gigabyte, for example, and
3,799, just right?
Yeah, 3,899, I think. 3,899. Maybe I did a typo here, but essentially the math will still work out, right? But essentially, this is what that's the phone I'm looking at. So depending on your income bracket, let's take a look here, right? So your annual income, we've got ranges here from 60 to 100,000 ringgit, tax reliefs. Automatic one. So I think everyone who pays EPF, whatever, you get a certain amount of tax relief automatically. It's, unless I'm mistaken, it's 9,000 ringgit personal relief immediately, up to 4,000 ringgit for EPF contributions, and then 250 ringgit for SOCSO. So I've computed that in automatically at the start. So then your chargeable income falls to these levels, right? Depending on where you are in the tax bracket. So if we take a look at this, so if I remember correctly, the taxable bracket in this area, actually, let me pull up the number. I have it right here. So the tax bracket, right? So between 35,000 and 1 ringgit and 50,000 ringgit, you're charged 600 ringgit on the first 35,000, and then 8% on the next 15,000 ringgit, which max out at 1,200. Take a look at the bracket yourself. I've already computed the math here on the different brackets. So when we take a look at chargeable income, different varying, the tax bill before the relief is this amount, right? So up and up and up depending on the income you claim, because we do have a progressive tax system. Now, let's say you want to utilize the full 2,500 ringgit special relief plus another 1,300, if my on-the-spot math is correct, from the lifestyle tax relief for the device purchase. Your chargeable income now comes to these levels here, all right? And then the tax bill is reduced by, in these particular examples, 312 ringgit, 546, and 819 ringgit. So there is savings there, but you have to do your own your own math here, right? Your own computation, because
for sure.
No,
I mean, for sure.
Sorry. Sorry, I thought you said Roshan. Yeah. So make sure you do your own computation here. I suggest everyone take a look at the tax bracket and understand it, and then do your own math, because the savings itself is not based on, it's not going to be exact, right? Because you're going to have different chargeable income and all that sort of things. Also keep in mind that it will change depending on the other reliefs that you take into consideration. But for context, this is the kind of savings that you could possibly get.
Correct.
Off your tax bill.
Which is on top of the other things that you would have already gotten, right? For example, if you had purchased the device outright through other channels, and you get some extra savings from there, which we'll talk about, I think, the next part. But so that's it's important to note here. It's on top of the other stuff that you're already saving, and you get them next year off of your income tax.
Right. Not an immediate savings, right? It's a savings
No.
potentially of your tax bill next year. And also keep in mind that you're only taxable after, or generally after 34,000 ringgit after EPF deductions. So if you're below this kind of bracket, you may not be saving a lot of money because you could be entering that whole the non-taxable bracket or the very, very little tax bracket, right? Because I think this is a bracket that gets an automatic tax rebate of the tax that you get, that you're paid.
Correct.
So keep that in mind as well in that sense. Jumping over to the next slide. We've got the trade-in and trade-up programs. So obviously, this is a great way to save money. So let's say I wanted to buy the 3,899 ringgit phone. My iPhone 10R is worth a 980 ringgit today. That saves me 1,000 ringgit off the device, right? And that brings my effective monthly cost down as well. So something to think about when you're doing the math for yourself.
Yep.
And then this is just reference prices here. There is a certain pattern here. I'm not going to say it out loud, but it does look like the iPhones do hold up their. It looks like I'm saying it out loud, but the iPhones do seem to hold up their value over time. But do keep in mind that these prices I got from an Apple reseller, right? So maybe there are different pricings if you go to Samsung itself in terms of the trade-in value. So
correct.
Make sure you go to the particular place that you want to. And take a look at the different prices out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to point out here that the current phones that you have do hold some value, and you can offset your future purchase with the devices that you're trying to buy. I think that some, like you mentioned just now, that some telcos also take in trade-ins, and which gives you an immediate savings on top of the subsidies that they are providing as well. And one last thing that we talked about, I mentioned this a few weeks ago when Samsung launched their new devices, the foldable ones. They launched together with like some trade-up promotions where they top up certain values, certain amounts. I think they're also opening up trade-ins of up to 5 devices to trade up to one device, one new device, which is something pretty cool. We don't really see that very often, so I think it's worth pointing out here.
Yeah. Actually, I just saw one comment, Pang, that I do want to bring up, which is, I think, really important and kind of references the trade and trade up. We've got Subhash on Facebook saying that one of the factors he looks into is repairability of phones. And I have to say, this is a very, very, very important one, right? And this is where the iPhones are super guilty. Their repairability is just getting worse and worse by the year. And that's something that you need to price in as well. Yes, the value holds up, but the value also goes to zero if it gets damaged, right? Your ability to trade in and trade up is significantly reduced. So great point there, Subhash. And definitely, this is where Apple starts becoming a bit more of an insurance company by selling protection plans, right? Repairability is something that you definitely have to look into. And hey, this is coming from someone who uses pretty much all Apple devices, but you have to think about it from a financial point of view. How much does it cost? So if you're buying an iPhone, you have to think about the cost of replacement, not the cost of repair. For the most part, yes, there's other things you can repair, of course, but that's something you have to keep in mind, right? In terms of being able to spend responsibly.
In the protective devices, the protective cases and stuff as well.
Yeah. You got to spend 100 ringgit on a good screen protector, 200 ringgit on a case, and all that sort of jazz. And don't forget that, like we saw the iPhone 13, the camera went from this way to this way. Just keep in mind that this could affect your case as well. And then you have to buy a new case because they changed the look of the camera. So, just keep an eye on these things, right? And just on terms of cash flow, right? So there are 2 ways to kind of optimize your cash flow. One is the zero plans that we mentioned earlier, but you got to do your own math there, right? To see whether you're actually paying more overall than less, especially if you are upgrading to a certain plan just for the phone, right? That's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I think we pointed out just now as well, like the zero upfront savings, the subsidies that you get from a zero upfront plan is less than the traditional contract where you actually get a few hundred ringgit more in subsidies. So, that the only downside is that you pay it upfront, that device. So, yeah.
And then of course you got the easy payment plan, right? So if you take let's say a normal contract and then you don't want to pay the 2,400 ringgit upfront, you can do that over 12 or 24 months depending on the credit card provider usually and all that sort of things. Yeah, I think the base is 12, right? Some credit card providers are providing 24 months. So just something to keep an eye on. Again, if you're using a credit card, pay off the full balance because you don't want to be paying interest on carrying a balance on a credit card. It's one of the most inefficient or most expensive forms of credit you can get. And then the telco zero plans, again, it's important to pay attention to maybe take a look at your data that you're using over the last 12 months and really ask yourself the question whether you need that kind of data, right? And someone who uses my phone a lot for work, I pay an extra RM5 a month for unlimited WhatsApp and another RM5 a month for unlimited social media without video streaming or something like that. So there are deals out there to be had to save money overall and still be able to buy the phone.
Cool.
Here, Bang, I think this is your realm of expertise, right?
Yeah, no, I love spending money. Don't tell my wife that, but some of the ways that maybe I'll just share with you and the viewers as well is that when you're making big ticket purchases, it always makes sense to optimize that spending with the right credit cards, right? So at the Ringgit Plus blog, we do come up with a lot of recommendations, and you know that we can roughly kind of break down the different types of credit cards into three. One is the cashback credit card, one is the rewards points, and lastly, there's the air miles credit cards. So cashback credit cards, very straightforward. You earn cashbacks from your retail spending. It's good for low value purchases. So a lot of cashback credit cards give up 30 ringgit, 50 ringgit, sometimes 80 ringgit per month. So as you can see, they're capped, and there are certain T's and C's that you need to take a look at. So that's why we kind of put here that they're good for like low value phones, maybe 1,000 plus for your phones. The second thing is the rewards points cards. You earn points for every ringgit that you spend, and then you can use that to redeem items or vouchers from their catalog, and therefore you get some form of effective savings. But the rewards and the returns are not really great. On average, one reward point is about 0.2% returns across the board for most of the credit cards that we've looked at. Lastly, there's the Air Miles credit cards. So this is the one that gives you points that you can redeem for frequent flyer miles. That's your Malaysia Airlines, your Singapore Airlines, and all the other airlines around the world. These cards give you the highest returns potentially, which can go anywhere from 4%, 5% for economy class. But if you want to go all baller and redeem a business class flight, that's like can go anywhere up to 8 to 12% from some calculations in the past. Yeah, but of course these are all pre-COVID calculations, right?
Yeah.
The risk is that the accumulation period is long, right? To redeem a flight can take a year or two, depending on your spending pattern. And also there's the potential of devaluation of points either from the miles side or from the bank's side. So yeah, I mean the returns are high, but it really depends on your whether there's this kind of things.
Another thing to add there, Pang, is also the e-wallets, right? So there's a particular e-wallet that uses your phones, and they've also entered the realm of big ticket purchases. So I go to a particular Apple reseller, and I can use a certain I can use GrabPay to pay for it, right? And I get the thousands of points or hundreds of points. Yeah. I'm not sure what the math is anymore for that. And because I utilize the service especially because of the last year for food and payments, I could use that points for other things later. So there are ways to hack this around, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the whole point is really kind of dipping into as many pools as possible. Which leads me into this point as well, right? Like your pre-order promos, buying a phone before it actually goes on sale, you get a lot of free accessories. You see this a lot with most of the Android companies. There's even one campaign before where buy a phone, you get a free TV for the first like 5,000 users. It was an actual thing, right? The TV was like 2,600 ringgit. The phone was 3,000. So it was a pretty good deal at the time. But the last
Amazing.
thing that that I will share as well is I'm an online shopping addict as well. E-commerce campaigns, right, on Lazada and Shopee, they do have a lot of campaigns when it comes to Apple devices for some reason.
Right.
So you have a lot of bank partnerships where they give high value vouchers, sometimes 200 ringgit, sometimes more. I've seen before. Shopee and Lazada have their own kind of platform specific vouchers, so you can offset a pretty big amount. So I put here 499 through their games and collection of vouchers and stuff like that. So the goal here is really to dip into as many as possible. You mentioned e-wallets, high value vouchers, pre-order promos, and using the right credit cards. At the end of the day, that can come up to the high triple digit in savings, right?
Yeah. That's almost 10%, possibly or more of the device,
Exactly.
right? Particular
Yeah.
devices. And there's this thing I've heard. I think it's Ramit Sethi. He likes to call it. He calls it a latte factor or something like that. And I think his opinion is that we shouldn't worry about the $3 purchases. But thing is, I don't think that really applies to developing nations or countries with lower, with higher, where the purchase power is so much higher, right? Because a $3 purchase there is a 10 to 12 ringgit purchase
12
here.
Exactly.
And that is double minimum wage. So immediately, these are the kinds of savings that we can get from all the different kind of things, right? So sometimes looking at rules from abroad may not be as specific to the local context, right? So this is also important to kind of pay attention to.
Yeah, but again,
don't dismiss these things, right? Because it's like, it's
20 ringgit here, 50 ringgit there. It's still
it's the money.
Add up. Yeah, they add up to quite a bit. So yeah, that's like quite a few tips and tricks that we've shared. Before we go to the question and answers, there's a lot. We've been getting quite a lot. My producers like, we might have to extend this a little bit longer. Sorry, guys, but we have 2 more seats to give away. And this time, we'll try to make the questions a little bit harder. I hope.
We'll try.
Let's see the question, and we have 15 seconds to answer, right? Okay, so smartphones are a depreciating asset. True or false? I know, Roshan, you mentioned this just now. So put down your comments, A or B.
Yeah. So based on the presentation that we just had, just to put a limit on the distance. Yeah. So we've got one answer in, I see. Fantastic. So one more ticket to be given away. Another answer I see has been given as well. Okay, fantastic.
Okay.
Quite a few answers. Quite a few answers going through. But I think Bang, I think the producers will get in touch, right?
Yep, the producers will get in touch. So I think the answer is true. Roshan, you did mention that smartphones are a depreciating asset. You consider it an asset simply because you use it for work. It gets job done.
There's an economic benefit to having a phone, right? End of the day.
Yeah, of course. Definitely.
Yeah, so just like a car. Car gets you to work. You could argue that a phone gets you to work more than a car does today,
for
right?
Sure. Yeah.
Especially over the last year.
At night, after work hours, all the time.
All right. I think we're done with the slides.
We're done.
Right?
We're done. Yeah.
We're done. So let me
stop
sharing the screen.
Yeah. We have a lot of questions. Our producers are stressing out over time. So, okay, let's
do
to
it.
The first question. When is a telco package good value, and how do you gauge when it's worth it?
This is a great question, though. So I think a lot of us have phone plans with the company, right? Like we get phone subsidies or things like that. So a phone plan can be great value if we have to use that certain phone plan. So let's say, for example, you've been using 128 ringgit plan, a 60 gigabyte plan, and you are using it because you don't have home internet or something, or you travel a lot, or you use a significant portion of it, right? Even half of it, then it could be good value, right? Because if you were to cut down, then there's no need for you to cut down on that. So it's good value if you use basically the table earlier. If you can maybe after this just go back to the table and kind of see the math there. It's good value if you utilize the data, because that means you need to use that plan, and then you can get the subsidy off it. Now, if you can afford the upfront, it does come off better in terms of the value the discount that you get essentially. But some like 24 or 36 month zero upfront plans have insurance as well, right? So you get like a protection plan with it. So that's something to also kind of keep in mind with that. So that's when the good value can come in. And I think for iPhones generally, because of the lack of repairability, it's generally quite good value in that sense. But if you're someone like me who only uses 50 ringgit a month, may not be good value there. Right? If you're a prepaid user and you're very happy with it, you're using 30 to 60 ringgit a month, and you've been doing it for the last 5 years. I have my cousin uses 60 ringgit a month, and he's very happy there. Then maybe there's not enough value to be had in upgrading to a 128 or so on and so forth. So I think it's kind of the way you want to take a look at it. Again, there are many different ways to look at it, but tweet at me at Roshan Kanesan or Instagram DM if you want more context here, because obviously time is of the essence.
Go on along, yeah. Okay. We'll go for the next question. I know. This is very subjective. This set of questions
very subjective.
So is it better to upgrade your phone every year and sell off the current one to preserve
Ooh.
its value, or to use it until it dies? Oh, this one very interesting.
This is very, very subjective, right? Uh, because you could save some money every year, but you have to be someone who are you willing to do the work, right? To go out and find a buyer for your 1-year-old phone, because the warranty is done. People may be a bit worried over the usability, and it takes work to get it done. It's like selling a house, right? Essentially, it's except a house is an appreciating asset. It's like selling a car, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do take on a chunk of the
There's some
what's the word
legwork to
here?
be done, right?
There's some legwork to be done, but you do take on a chunk of the depreciation there. But what I have noticed recently is that with the iPhone recent pricing, the iPhone 12 is only 300 ringgit cheaper than the iPhone 13 comparison, right? So that could mean that the valuations of secondhand phones also may have increased because of that. So something to take into consideration. But again, there's a lot of legwork to be involved here. So if you're someone who flips phones regularly and you have a steady stream of buyers who you know will get it, then it could be. But I think for most people like myself who don't want to care too much about this, maybe again I wait till 3-4 years and I trade it in to get a certain amount of value. But remember, the trade-in value, you can get better if you're selling it to someone that you know or someone out there, because there's a better negotiating power and all that sort of things. The trade-in should be the benchmark, should be the lower tier, right? Should be the floor
Correct.
price essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, coming from experience as well, a lot of people that I know, they tend to upgrade their phones every year, so that they sell it within that first 1 year period where the device holds the highest value, and they either sell it off, like you said, to someone, to the marketplaces, or there are a lot of online marketplaces these days, or you can do trade in, right? Like if you don't want to do the legwork, there's always the trade in programs, and alternate, for them, they say that this, again, I think it's simply because value is very subjective to the individual, and it could just mean that they want the best.
Maybe they want a phone that's always in warranty. That could be something. I think a good way to kind of check this barometer is to get the effective monthly cost of the phone, right? So if you are, and then you times that by 12, and then you can kind of gauge whether you're making money or losing money based on that, right?
Yeah, true. Okay, we'll go for the next question. Isn't it always better to buy with a 0% EPP, easy payment plan, whenever possible, if you can afford the full amount? Oh, that last part is important.
I would say yes, as long as you're paying your credit card balance full every month, because then what you can do is you can, instead of paying that upfront 3,500 ringgit on a phone, you divide it over 12 months. Let's say 3,600, because 3,600 divided 12 is 300 ringgit a month. All right, great. So now you're paying 300 ringgit a month, and you can then maybe invest the rest of the money on a monthly basis in a investment plan or an investment product to kind of, again, look towards the longer term. But basically, you can do more with that money, right? You can earn 8% per annum over the long term, that sort of thing, instead of kind of committing all that money into an asset that is going to depreciate the minute you start using it.
Or if it's too risky, those money market funds, short-term liquidity funds, right?
Which at the very base, you can earn 2% on it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Does my phone need to be 5G capable right now?
This is a good question, because it depends. I think it really depends on how. Okay, we've all arguably had phones, most of us, a lot of us, for 10 years at least, right? Since 2010, I think a lot of people have had experience with smartphones. So you can kind of tell how often you need to change your smartphone. And more often, what I found is that phones are lasting longer now because they're getting so advanced, but the utility that we actually need is actually a lot lower. The one of the key, I think, factors of usability is battery life, right? Because that's something that will really kind of affect the quality of your use. But phone software is becoming more and more optimized and all of that jazz. Anyway, so back to the point here. It depends how long you want to use the phone, right? Because at this rate, we're not even sure how fast 5G capability is going to reach the country in terms of being deployed everywhere. Even the US is not deployed everywhere. I think only in South Korea, it's deployed effectively right now. But in the US, there's so many limitations to its deployment. Here, it's rolling out right now. It's supposed to come up. They did a test in Langkawi. But again, if you're someone who changes every 2 years, it may not be worth it to get a 5G phone now. If you're someone who changes every 5 years, then it may be worth it. But then the question you have to ask yourself is, what is the consumer utility of 5G realistically, right? Because from my own understanding, it's a lot of the business side where the 5G utility becomes becomes a proposition for them because of edge computing and all this sort of thing. So the consumer side, still very debatable, relative, very personal choice. But depends how often you change your phone and what are you going to use the 5G for, really? That's the kind of thing. I would say no at this juncture, but
Well,
yeah.
a lot of times, most of even some mid-range devices are already having 5G processors, the modems integrated into the processors already. So it may be a value-added thing, but like what Roshan you're saying, it may not have much utility at this point, but maybe your next generation phone could be using it much better.
Correct. Yeah, because it's also just about the upgrade of the 5G tech itself, right? Because the first generation modem, may be outdated in a few years, like Wi-Fi 5, then Wi-Fi 6, that sort of thing. So again, consider your needs, how often you change the device, and then make that decision, right? I would personally say it's not a killer feature for me at this juncture.
Cool. All right. So,
we've answered this, right?
A phone and get a line separately or get on contract. I think you did mention this one, but maybe just a quick recap. I know there was one comment about this as well. Let me find it.
Yes, there was. Was it on YouTube?
Yeah, so telco cost should not be included in the total cost because the monthly telco cost would be paid anyway on the assumption that the user is already paying this as well.
So I think I've noted this already, right? Essentially, it comes down to the fact that if you're someone who's going to upgrade simply to get that plan, to get the phone, to get the subsidy, may not be worth it. If you're someone like me or budget conscious telco user who's like, I only need 8 gigs or 5 gigs of data, then it's not worth it. But if you're someone who's already using that 60 gigabytes a month, or you need that 128 ringgit plan or whatever, and you're using the 60 gigs, then yes. But if you're not utilizing the 60 gigs, I would say do some math as to whether you can downgrade your plan and save money there on a monthly basis instead of trying to save money on the device purchase, right, over the long term.
Yeah. So I think that what you're saying in essence is just don't commit to a higher tier plan just for the subsidies because you'll end up paying more down the line for your plan. So always be conscious of how much you're using, whether you're fully utilizing the plan that you have in terms of data, because not all of us are working as much outdoors these days.
I see quite a funny comment here on Facebook from Bradley. It says, I think I'm going to interpret it this way. An iPhone leads to AirPod, which leads to Apple Watch, which leads to iPad, which leads to Apple TV. It goes 150% of annual income. As someone who feels that pain, I agree, Bradley. But there are actually many different ways to get, if you want the Apple ecosystem budget life, there is a way to go about it, right? You get an iPhone SE, you get a old generation Apple Watch. You don't need an Apple TV, really. I don't see the kind of benefit there. And then the AirPod. Biased opinion, AirPods are one of my favorite purchases. It was okay. I didn't buy it. It was a gift, but still great. But anyway, they're very, very biased in the Apple ecosystem. I think someone mentioned that Tim Cook is my spirit animal. Yeah, kind of. I like what he's done to the stock price and all that jazz. But anyway, we could digress. Insurance. Okay. Interesting.
So yeah, this is the last question. I think I've been told this is the last question. What are your thoughts on? Oh, the last two. This is the second last question. What are your thoughts on how to navigate some of the device insurance packages?
And device insurance really sounds like an Apple problem. And I'm sure the other flagships have it as well. I think you've got to do the same kind of math we did with the telco plans earlier, right? You have to take a look at it, and we've all had either personal or friends' experiences with regards to their phones breaking and changing their phones and things like that. So use the law of big numbers here, right? In terms of how often you need to change your phone. So hopefully I don't jinx it, but I don't get insurance for my phone because over the last 10 years of using iPhones, I've only had to replace the screen like maybe once or twice. Now, maybe because I've said that, it's going to happen today. Who knows? But this is something to take into consideration, right, in terms of the insurance payments. But if you're someone who not very careful, that sort of thing, it may be worthwhile for devices with very low repairability. With devices with high repairability, you can just go get it repaired, right?
Mm.
So insurance, I don't have a strong opinion on this, Bang. I'm going to be honest. I think this is highly, highly personalized and relative.
Yeah, I mean, coming from experience as well, there are some third-party insurance providers from in Malaysia itself as well that offer device insurance that includes theft. So that could be something that could be worth looking into. If I'm not wrong, the plan that I had purchased last year was, I think it was like 60 or 70 ringgit. That was bundled together with the phone, and it came with a little card. But you can install the app itself, and what it does is that the app also has like some tracking features. So in case you get stolen, you can find your device. Well, you have
So
most Apple and Android has that already.
yeah, it's the value
But
add, right? Essentially, but the thing I
oh
would
yeah,
caution there is then you've got to then add that into your effective phone price, right? You got to consider
yeah,
that as
correct.
part of the phone, and then you can kind of then gauge whether it's affordable or not.
Correct.
Yeah,
Whether it's worth buying on your circumstance, again, it's
how much
protection.
is it? Yeah, how much does it add to your? Because protection is very useful in a lot of cases, pure protection, right? Because based on, well, again, stats, if you are someone who breaks your phone, loses your phone, that sort of thing, and I know friends who are like that, who for some reason things happen. Then
Yeah,
protection is, you got to do the numbers here and say how much are you going to spend additional every year, and whether you think you'd spend that otherwise on a phone, that sort of thing, right? You got to do the
yeah,
comparison math
yeah,
here. Google
yeah.
spreadsheets are your friend.
So sorry, before we go to the next one, I just remembered as well, like something worth noting as well is that when you make a purchase with a credit card, some credit card providers actually do give
Yes.
you extended warranties that go above that actually start the year after your manufacturer's warranty ends. So that's something additional to think about if you want something like that. It's not very much it's a common feature that isn't mentioned very often. So that's something to check in your card features. That could be something worth noting as well. Anyway, we'll
Yeah.
go into the last question. Since this year we get an extra 2,500 ringgit tax relief, can I claim the full 5,000 if I buy only one device, which is one phone?
Yeah, you can just put both receipts in. Make sure with any tax relief, make sure you have the receipt. Okay, you have to prove that you made this purchase.
Yeah.
If you ever get audited, the LHDN is not going to just believe you because you said, "Yeah, I bought a phone." No, you need to have the documentation to back up these things. Yes, from my understanding, you can do that. And it's essentially for devices, right? These are the kind of incentives that the government's giving to go out and spend money in certain areas, or to help you with from the work from home environment last
Right.
year. But keep in mind, if you're going to use the full 5K, you can use the 2,500 ringgit lifestyle for many, many other things, including gym memberships and certain sports equipment,
Your mobile
books,
internet as well. That's
mobile internet subscription plans as well. So don't unless you're not paying for any of these things. There is an opportunity cost to using the full 5K for the device.
Correct. All right. That's the last of the questions that we have. I know there's quite a bit
Fantastic.
more, but we are moving into the 1 hour time,
Oh,
which we
wow.
try not to. Yeah. It's a pretty big conversation with a lot of things to talk about, Roshan. So anyway, Roshan, always a pleasure to talk to you. We'll catch you in the next episode. But for everyone else who's watching, who wants to continue this iPhone debate with Roshan, you can check him out. He's one of our certified financial planners with the Ringgit Plus Financial Planner. It's a one-to-one financial planning service, so you can Roshan will be able to give you more than just giving Excel charts on iPhones.
Whether you should buy a phone. Yes, it's definitely more than just that.
Yes, it's definitely more than just that. It covers virtually every aspect of your personal finance as well as your financial goals. For more information, scan that QR code that just appeared just now, or check out the comment section. I think we'll also be sharing a link in there. But yes, Roshan, thank you so much for joining us today.
It was a
If you
pleasure,
guys
Thank you so much.
enjoy the show, and if you have any feedback, wow, what are we flipping around? Anyway, if you guys enjoy the show, if you feel like this time slot is good, or if you prefer the 8:30 p.m. Slot, just let us know as well. But yes, I think that's it for this episode. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay safe, everyone.
Take care, everyone.